The lawyer's pen hovers over the deed, and I can feel my whole future hanging in that moment of silence. 3 months ago, I was David Kim, 17 years old, eating out of Riverside Children's Home with nothing but a duffel bag and a bus ticket to nowhere. Now I'm sitting in this oak-paneled office in Cedar Falls, Montana, about to inherit a 1,000-acre ranch from a grandfather I never knew existed. The irony isn't lost on me that the family who abandoned me might be the same family saving me. Scott Cox, the estate attorney, finally sets down his pen and looks at me with those kind eyes that remind me of the social workers who actually cared. David, I need you to understand what you're taking on here. This isn't just property. This is a legacy, a responsibility, and frankly, more work than most people twice your age could handle. I stare at the deed with my name typed in official black letters. David Kim, sole heir to the Cedar Falls Ranch, formerly owned by Frank James Kim. My grandfather kept his Korean name even after marrying my grandmother, even in rural Montana in the 1960s. That tells me something about the man I never got to meet. I understand, sir, I've been taking care of myself for a long time. Before we see how this ends, tell us where you're watching from and hype this video in the comments. This story gets wild, and I want to know if you've ever had a moment where everything in your life changed with one conversation. Let me take you back to where this all started, because the path from that orphanage to this lawyer's office is something I still can't quite believe happened. 3 months earlier, I'm sitting on my narrow bed at Riverside Children's Home, folding the same 5 t-shirts I've owned for 2 years. Tomorrow is my 18th birthday, which means tomorrow I age out of the system. Susan Castillo, my caseworker, had been preparing me for months, but nothing really prepares you for the reality of having nowhere to go. Quote, Tom. Susan says, sitting on the edge of my bed, she's been my caseworker for 3 years, the longest I've had anyone consistent in my life. Quote 3. Fine, that word has followed me through 17 years of foster homes, group homes, and finally Riverside. I'm always going to be fine, never great, never terrible, just fine. Somewhere in the middle, forgotten. What about my family? I asked, the same question I've asked every caseworker since I was old enough to understand what family meant. Quote 5. Susan's face does that thing it always does when I ask about family. Soft, pitying, like she's about to deliver bad news gently. The next morning, I walk out of Riverside with everything I own in one duffel bag. The transitional housing is a studio apartment above a convenience store in the rough part of town. The walls are thin, the heat barely works, and my neighbor plays music until 3 in the morning. But it's mine for 6 months, and that's more than I've ever had. The warehouse job is exactly what you'd expect. Loading trucks, moving boxes, 8 hours of mindless physical labor that pays just enough to keep me fed and housed. My supervisor, Adam Ward, is a decent guy who doesn't ask too many questions about why an 18-year-old has no emergency contacts and no family to list on his employment forms. You're a hard worker, Kim, he tells me after my first month. Keep your head down, show up on time, and you'll do fine here. There's that word again. Fine. I fall into a routine that feels like survival more than living. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. On weekends, I walk around the city, watching families in parks, couples holding hands, groups of friends laughing over coffee. I'm invisible to all of them, which is nothing new, but somehow feels heavier now that I'm officially alone in the world. 2 months into this new life, I come home from work to find a letter slipped under my door. Not a bill, not junk mail, but an actual letter with my name handwritten across expensive-looking cream paper. The return address says Cox and Associates, Attorneys at Law, Cedar Falls, Montana. I stare at that envelope for a full hour before opening it. In my experience, official letters bring bad news. Placement changes, court dates, termination of services. Nothing good ever comes in official envelopes. But this letter changes everything. I read it 3 times before the words sink in. Frank James Kim, my grandfather, a man I never knew existed, who apparently knew about me and left me something in his will. I call the number with shaking hands. Quote 11. There's a pause, then warmth floods her voice. Oh, David, Mr. Cox has been hoping you'd call. Can you hold for just a moment? Scott Cox comes on the line with the kind of voice that immediately makes you trust him. Warm, steady, like he's genuinely happy to hear from me. I tell him, and my voice cracks on the word family. The room starts spinning. A grandfather who looked for me, who wanted to find me, who cared enough to leave me something. I ask, expecting maybe a few $1,000s, enough to get me through college or trade school. Code 17. I drop the phone. When I pick it back up, Scott Cox is still talking, explaining legal procedures and timelines. But all I can hear is the blood rushing in my ears. A ranch, 1,000 acres, a house, a place to belong. I quit my job the next day. Adam Ward thinks I've lost my mind when I tell him I'm moving to Montana to run a ranch. Quote 22. Quote 25 to quote 24. I look around the warehouse at the concrete walls and fluorescent lights, at the other workers who look like they've given up on life getting better. Then I'll be back where I started. But at least I'll know I tried. The bus ride to Cedar Falls takes 18 hours. I watch the landscape change from urban sprawl to farmland to rolling hills dotted with cattle. The further west we go, the more space there is between things. Space I've never experienced. In the city, everything is cramped together, fighting for room. Out here, the land stretches to the horizon like it goes on forever. Cedar Falls is the kind of small town you see in movies. Main Street lined with local businesses, American flags hanging from every porch, people who wave at strangers. The bus drops me off in front of Murphy's Diner, and I stand there with my duffel bag, feeling like I've landed on another planet. Scott Cox's office is 3 blocks from the bus stop, in a brick building that looks like it's been there since the town was founded. Janet Morales greets me like I'm family, which is a feeling I'm not used to. Quote 26, she says, studying my face. Quote 27, Scott Cox is exactly what his voice suggested. Mid-50s, silver hair, the kind of man who probably coached Little League and never missed church on Sunday. His office walls are covered with photos of local families, kids graduating, weddings, celebrations, a life deeply rooted in community. He pulls out a thick folder and sets it on the desk between us. The word hits me like a physical blow. Quote 31. Scott opens the folder and pulls out a letter with my name written across it in shaky handwriting. Quote 32. My hands tremble as I unfold the paper. The handwriting is difficult to read, weakened by illness, but the words are clear. Quote 3, I'm crying before I finish reading. 17 years of wondering why nobody wanted me, why I wasn't worth keeping. And here's proof that someone did want me. Someone fought to find me. Someone considered me family. There's more, Scott says gently. He pulls out photographs. Frank Kim with cattle, Frank Kim at community barbecues, Frank Kim receiving some kind of award from the town council. In every picture, he looks proud but lonely, like something essential is missing from his life. He talked about you constantly. John Scott says barely a day went past that Frank didn't mention his grandson in the city, wondering what you were like, what you were doing, whether you'd want to be a rancher. I don't know anything about ranching, and I admit, Frank knew that. That's why he arranged for John to stay on. John Scott has been foreman of Cedar Falls Ranch for 15 years. He knows every acre, every head of cattle, every piece of equipment. He's agreed to teach you everything you need to know. We spend the next 2 hours going over legal documents, financial statements, property details. The numbers are staggering. The ranch is worth over $2 million, but more importantly, it's profitable. It generates enough income to support a comfortable life, employ several people, and contribute to the local economy. Quote 38. Scott explains. Quote 39, quote 40, and quote 41 family. There's that word again, but this time it doesn't feel foreign. Quote Fion, the drive to the ranch takes 20 minutes through countryside that looks like it belongs on postcards. Rolling hills, split rail fences, cattle grazing in fields that stretch to the mountains in the distance. Scott points out neighboring ranches, tells me stories about the families who've lived here for generations. That's the Morrison place. Sarah Morrison was your grandfather's closest friend. She'll want to meet you. And over there, that's where the Hendersons live. They helped Frank when he first arrived, gave him work when nobody else would. We turn through a gate with Cedar Falls Ranch carved into a wooden sign. The driveway winds through pastures where black Angus cattle look up curiously as we pass. Then the house comes into view, and I understand why my grandfather loved this place. It's not a mansion, but it's substantial. 2 stories, wraparound porch, the kind of house that was built to last generations. Mature trees shade the front yard, and flower beds line the walkway. Behind the house, I can see barns, outbuildings, corrals full of horses. A man in his 50s comes out to meet us. Tall, weathered, wearing work clothes and a hat that's seen better days. This must be John Scott. Quote 46, he says, extending a calloused hand. Quote 47. His handshake is firm, his eyes kind but evaluating. I can tell he's trying to figure out what kind of person I am, whether I'm worthy of Frank Kim's legacy. Thank you for staying on to help me, I tell him. I honestly don't know the first thing about ranching. Frank didn't either when he started, but he had something more important than knowledge. He had heart, and he had the sense to listen to people who knew more than he did. John gives me a tour of the property that takes 2 hours. The main barn, the equipment shed, the cattle handling facilities, the hay fields, the pastures. Everything is well maintained, organized, clearly the result of decades of careful stewardship. Frank built this place with his own hands, John tells me, as we walk through the main barn. When he bought the land, there was nothing here but grass and a falling down shack. He lived in that shack for 3 years while he saved money to build the house. Why didn't he ever marry again? Have other children? John stops walking and looks at me seriously. He did marry again, briefly. Nice woman named Lisa Phillips. But Frank was haunted by losing your mother, by losing you. Lisa said he never fully committed to their relationship because part of his heart was always searching for his grandson. She left after 2 years, said she couldn't compete with the ghost. We end the tour at the house. Inside, it's exactly what you'd expect from a man who lived alone but took pride in his home. Clean, comfortable, filled with furniture that was built to last. The walls are covered with photographs of the ranch through the years, community events, cattle shows, harvest celebrations. But what catches my attention is a bedroom on the 2nd floor that's clearly been prepared for someone. Twin bed with a new comforter, desk, bookshelf filled with ranching guides and agricultural textbooks. Quote 50, John explains. Quote 50 is, I sit on the bed and try to process everything. This morning I woke up in a studio apartment above a convenience store, alone in the world. Now I'm sitting in a house my grandfather prepared for me, on a ranch worth millions, surrounded by people who want to help me succeed. John, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think I can do this? Really? He sits in the desk chair and studies me for a long moment. David, your grandfather was the hardest working man I ever knew. But more than that, he cared about doing things right. He cared about this land, these animals, this community. If you've got even half of that in you, you'll do fine. There's that word again, but this time it doesn't feel like settling. It feels like possibility. What would you need from me to make this work? Honesty. If you don't know something, ask. If you make a mistake, own it, and be willing to get your hands dirty. Ranching isn't a desk job. I've been getting my hands dirty my whole life. John smiles for the first time since I met him. Then you'll fit right in. We spend the evening going over the ranch operations. John shows me record books, explains the seasonal cycles, introduces me to the complexity of managing livestock, crops, equipment, and employees. It's overwhelming, but not in a bad way. It's like being handed the keys to a machine I don't understand yet, but am eager to learn. Quote 65. John explains. Quote 6, quote 7, quote 7. That night, I sleep in the bedroom my grandfather prepared for me. The bed is comfortable, the room is quiet, and for the first time in my life, I fall asleep feeling like I'm home. I wake up before dawn to the sound of cattle lowing in the distance. Through my window, I can see the sun just starting to peek over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold I've never seen in the city. The air smells clean, like grass and earth and possibility. John is already in the kitchen when I come downstairs, coffee brewing and breakfast started. The next few weeks pass in a blur of learning. John is a patient teacher, showing me how to spot a sick cow, how to fix a broken fence, how to operate the tractor without killing myself. Tom and Mike, the other ranch hands, accept me with the kind of reserved friendliness that has to be earned over time. Evelyn Roberts comes by twice a week to go over the books and teach me the business side of ranching. She's a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who's been keeping ranch finances organized since before computers. Quote 72, she tells me during one of our sessions. It's 73 to quote 74, quote 75 on. Slowly, I start to feel like I belong here. My hands develop calluses from fence work and equipment maintenance. My body gets stronger from the physical labor. Most importantly, my confidence grows as I master new skills. The turning point comes 6 weeks after my arrival. We're moving cattle from one pasture to another, a routine operation that John has done hundreds of times. But one of the bulls decides he doesn't want to cooperate and breaks away from the herd, heading for a section of fence that won't hold him. Without thinking, I position myself between the bull and the fence, waving my hat and shouting to turn him back toward the group. It works, but John looks at me with new respect. "That was good instinct," he says later. "You read the situation and reacted like a rancher. I was just trying to help." Frank would have done the exact same thing. That evening, John tells me something that changes how I see myself. "David, I want you to know that Frank left detailed instructions about your inheritance. He could have just left you the property and walked away. But he was specific about wanting you to understand what you were inheriting, to appreciate the responsibility that comes with it." "What kind of instructions?" John pulls out a letter I haven't seen before, this one addressed to him. Quoted 82. He hands me the letter, and I read my grandfather's words about me. "John, my grandson has never had the stability that builds confidence, but I believe he has the character that builds strength. He's survived things that would break most people. If he chooses to embrace this life, to commit to this community, he'll become the kind of man who makes a difference. Help him see that he's not just inheriting property, he's inheriting a legacy of service, of stewardship, of belonging to something bigger than himself." Reading those words, I understand that my grandfather saw something in me that I'm just beginning to see in myself. Not just survival, but potential. Not just getting by, but thriving. The next morning, I make a decision that surprises everyone, including myself. We're sitting in the ranch office going over plans for the upcoming season when I say it. Expand how? I've been reading about sustainable farming practices, rotational grazing, diversification. What if we added some specialty crops, maybe organic vegetables for the local market, or agritourism? John leans back in his chair and grins. "You sound like your grandfather. He was always looking for ways to improve, to innovate. Is it realistic? With the right planning and investment? Absolutely. Frank left you with a solid foundation. There's room to grow." Over the next few months, I throw myself into learning everything I can about modern ranching techniques. I read books, attend agricultural extension workshops, visit other ranches to see different approaches. The more I learn, the more excited I become about the possibilities. But it's not just about the ranch, it's about the community. Cedar Falls is the kind of town where everyone knows everyone, where neighbors help neighbors without being asked, where your reputation is built on your actions over time. Slowly, I start to feel like I'm part of that fabric. I join the volunteer fire department. I help with the annual county fair. When Sarah Morrison, my grandfather's old friend, needs help fixing her barn roof, I show up with tools and spend my weekend getting it done. Frank would be proud, she tells me, as we finish nailing down the last shingles. You've got his heart. The real test comes during my first winter. Montana winters are brutal, and ranching in winter is a constant battle against cold, snow, and equipment failures. When the temperature drops to 20 below and the wind is howling across the plains, checking cattle becomes an act of endurance. But I discover something about myself during those long, cold months. I'm tougher than I thought. All those years of uncertainty, of making do with less, of adapting to new situations, have prepared me for this kind of challenge. When a blizzard knocks out power to half the county, I work alongside John and the other hands to make sure our cattle have food and water. When the Hendersons lose a barn to the storm, our whole community rallies to help them rebuild. Gloria Ross tells me one evening. She's been helping with the house since my grandfather's time, and her approval means more than any official recognition. Spring brings new challenges and new opportunities. I implement some of the sustainable practices I've been researching, starting small with a test plot of organic vegetables that I plan to sell at the local farmer's market. You sure about this? Tom asks as we prepare the soil. Vegetables seem like a lot of work for not much money. It's not about the money, I tell him. It's about showing that this ranch can adapt, can contribute to the community in new ways. The farmer's market becomes my first real test as a businessman. Standing behind a table full of tomatoes and peppers I grew myself, talking to customers about sustainable farming practices, I realize I'm not just selling produce. I'm representing the ranch, the Kim name, the legacy my grandfather built. The vegetables sell well, but more importantly, people start to see me as Frank Kim's worthy successor. Mrs. Henderson buys tomatoes every week and tells me stories about my grandfather. The pastor from the Methodist Church orders vegetables for their community dinners. Slowly, I'm building the kind of relationships that root you to a place. By my first anniversary on the ranch, I've accomplished things I never thought possible. The sustainable practices are working, increasing both productivity and profitability. The community has accepted me not just as Frank Kim's grandson, but as David Kim, rancher and neighbor. But the most important change is internal. I wake up every morning knowing who I am and where I belong. I have work that matters, people who depend on me, and a future I'm building with my own hands. The moment that really crystallizes everything happens on a warm evening in late summer. I'm sitting on the front porch after a long day of hay cutting, watching the sunset over the mountains, when John joins me with 2 cold beers. Penny for your thoughts, and he says, Vaughn, just thinking about how different my life is now. A year ago, I was nobody from nowhere with nothing to offer the world. And now? Now I'm a rancher. I'm part of something that matters. I have people counting on me, land that needs my care, a legacy to uphold. John takes a long sip of his beer and nods. Frank knew this would happen. He knew that once you found your place, you'd flourish. How could he know that? He never met me because he knew what it felt like to be displaced, to not belong anywhere. And he knew what it felt like to find your home. He recognized that hunger in your story. That night, I write a letter to Susan Castillo, my old caseworker. I want her to know what happened to the kid who aged out of Riverside with nothing but a duffel bag and low expectations. Dear Susan, I wanted you to know that I found my family. Not the family I was born to, but the family I chose and who chose me. I'm living on a ranch in Montana, working land that my grandfather preserved for me, surrounded by people who've become my chosen family. You always told the kids at Riverside that we'd be fine, and you were right. But it's better than fine. It's home. I never mail that letter, but writing it helps me understand how far I've traveled, not just in miles, but in becoming the person I was meant to be. The second year brings new challenges. A drought tests our water management systems. Market prices for cattle fluctuate wildly. Equipment breaks down at the worst possible times. But each challenge is also an opportunity to prove that I can handle whatever ranch life throws at me. I start taking on leadership roles in the community. I'm elected to the school board, helping make decisions about the education of local kids. I join the county agricultural committee, working on policies that affect all the ranchers in the area. You're becoming quite the civic leader, Evelyn observes during one of our financial meetings. Frank would be amazed at how you've stepped into this role. I never thought of myself as a leader. Leadership isn't about thinking you're better than other people. It's about taking responsibility for making things better. That's exactly what you're doing. The third year is when everything really comes together. The ranch is more profitable than it's ever been, thanks to the diversification and sustainable practices I've implemented. The community sees me as a full partner in local affairs. Most importantly, I've found my rhythm as a rancher and a neighbor. But success brings its own challenges. A developer from California approaches me about selling the ranch for development. The offer is astronomical, enough money to set me up for life without ever having to work again. Quote 109, the developer says during his presentation. Quote 110. I listen politely, but I already know my answer. This ranch isn't just an investment to be liquidated when the price is right. It's my grandfather's legacy, my community's foundation, and my own identity. I tell him John grins when I tell him about the conversation. Quote 103, quote 1, quote 15. That evening, I walked the property boundaries, something I've started doing regularly. It's a way to stay connected to the land, to notice changes, to appreciate what I've been given. As I walk, I think about the journey that brought me here. 3 years ago, I was a kid with no family, no roots, no future beyond basic survival. Today, I'm a rancher, a community leader, a man with deep roots and a clear sense of purpose. The transformation still amazes me. But more than the external changes, it's the internal transformation that matters most. I know who I am now. I know where I belong. I know that I'm worthy of the trust my grandfather placed in me, worthy of the acceptance this community has given me. As I complete my circuit of the property and head back toward the house, I see lights on in the windows, John's truck in the driveway. He's probably going over tomorrow's schedule, making sure we're ready for the county cattle show next week. This is my life now. Not perfect, not easy, but authentic and meaningful in ways I never imagined possible. I'm not just surviving anymore, I'm thriving. The fourth year brings an unexpected challenge that tests everything I've learned about resilience and community. A fire starts in the national forest and spreads rapidly toward our area. For 3 days, we're under evacuation orders, not knowing if we'll have homes and ranches to return to. The community response is immediate and overwhelming. Neighbors help neighbors evacuate livestock. The volunteer fire department works around the clock. Everyone pulls together in ways that remind me why I love this place. When the fire is finally contained, our ranch is spared, but several neighbors aren't as fortunate. The Hendersons lose their barn again, this time to fire instead of storm. The Morrison place suffers significant damage to their pastures and fencing. Without hesitation, I organize a community effort to help with rebuilding. We pool resources, volunteer labor, and expertise to get everyone back on their feet. It's during this effort that I realize I've become the kind of community leader my grandfather was. Quote 160, Sarah Morrison tells me as we work on rebuilding her fence line. Quote 117, the rebuilding effort strengthens bonds throughout the community and reinforces my understanding that being a rancher isn't just about managing land and livestock. It's about being part of a network of mutual support and shared responsibility. By year 5, I've achieved something I never thought possible. Not just financial success or community respect, but a deep sense of belonging that goes to my core. I wake up every morning grateful for the life I've built, the work I do, and the people who share this journey with me. The ranch has become more than profitable under my management. The sustainable practices have improved both the land and our bottom line. The diversification into vegetables and agritourism has created new revenue streams and strengthened our connection to the broader community. But the real measure of success isn't financial. It's the relationships I've built, the trust I've earned, and the legacy I'm continuing. When young people in the community ask me about careers in agriculture, I see the same hunger for purpose and belonging that I once felt. Ranching isn't easy, I tell them, but if you're willing to work hard to learn constantly and to commit to something bigger than yourself, it can give you a life worth living. Some of them take my advice. Others choose different paths. But I hope they all understand that success isn't about what you accumulate, it's about what you contribute. As I reflect on these 5 years, I think about the letter my grandfather wrote to me, the one I read in Scott Cox's office that first day. He hoped I would forgive his mistakes and accept his gift in the spirit it was given. He wanted me to understand that Kims don't give up. I've done more than accept his gift. I've honored it, expanded it, and made it my own. And I've learned that he was right about Kims not giving up. But more than that, I've learned that when you find where you belong, you don't want to give up. You want to dig in deeper, to contribute more, to become an integral part of something that will outlast you. The ranch will be here long after I'm gone, hopefully in the hands of someone who loves it as much as Frank Kim did, as much as I do. Maybe my own children someday, or maybe another young person who needs a place to belong and a chance to prove their worth. That's the real legacy my grandfather left me. Not just property or financial security, but the understanding that we all need roots, purpose, and community. He gave me a place where I could discover who I was meant to be. Looking back now, I can see that every challenge I faced in those early years, every moment of doubt or difficulty, was preparing me for this life. The resilience I developed in foster care serves me well during tough seasons. The independence I learned as a teenager helps me make difficult decisions. The hunger for belonging that drove me for so many years has been satisfied in ways I never imagined possible. I'm not the same person who stepped off that bus in Cedar Falls 5 years ago. That young man was surviving, getting by, hoping for something better. This man is thriving, contributing, building something that matters. The transformation isn't just personal. The ranch itself has evolved under my stewardship. We've implemented cutting-edge sustainable practices that other ranchers come to study. We've diversified our operations in ways that strengthen both profitability and community connections. We've become a model for how traditional agriculture can adapt to modern challenges while maintaining its core values. But perhaps most importantly, we've maintained the spirit that Frank Kim built into this place, a commitment to excellence, to community service, to treating the land and animals with respect. Those values haven't changed, even as our methods have evolved. The community has evolved too. New families have moved to the area, drawn by the quality of life and the strength of our local economy. Some worry about change, about losing the small town character that makes this place special. But I've learned that healthy communities grow and adapt while maintaining their essential character. My role has expanded beyond ranching. I serve on the county commission now, helping make decisions that affect the entire region. I'm involved in state agricultural policy, representing the interests of family ranchers. I speak at conferences about sustainable agriculture and rural community development. These roles feel natural now, but I remember how intimidated I was by any kind of public speaking when I first arrived. Growth happens gradually, then suddenly you realize you've become someone you never expected to be. The most satisfying part of my evolution is mentoring others. When young people age out of the foster system, social workers sometimes call me. Can I offer advice? Maybe a summer job? A chance to see what's possible when you find your place in the world? I always say yes. Not everyone is cut out for ranch life, but everyone deserves to know that they have value, that they can contribute something meaningful to the world. Last month, I hired a 19-year-old named Marcus, who aged out of care in Billings. He reminds me of myself at that age. Angry, defensive, convinced that the world has nothing good to offer him. But I see something else too. The same hunger that drove me to take a chance on an unknown grandfather's legacy. He asked after his first week, quote, 1-2-1 big, quote, 1-2-2, quote, 1-2-3. Marcus is skeptical, but he's willing to work. That's enough to start with. The rest will come, or it won't. But he'll have had the chance, the same chance I had. These days, when I walk the property boundaries, I think about continuity. My grandfather walked these same paths, worried about the same challenges, celebrated the same successes. Someday, someone else will walk here, carrying forward whatever legacy I leave behind. That thought doesn't make me feel small or temporary. It makes me feel connected to something eternal, something bigger than any individual life. The land endures, the community endures, the values endure. We're just temporary stewards, trying to leave things better than we found them. I think Frank Kim would be proud of what I've built on his foundation. Not just the financial success or the community recognition, but the way I've embraced the responsibility he entrusted to me. The way I've become not just a rancher, but a neighbor, a leader, a mentor. Most of all, I think he'd be proud that I've learned to see myself as worthy of the gift he gave me. That was the hardest lesson, learning that I deserved a place in the world, that I had something valuable to contribute. As I write this, it's been exactly 6 years since I first walked into Scott Cox's office. Tomorrow we're hosting the annual community barbecue here at the ranch, a tradition my grandfather started that I've continued and expanded. The whole county will be here, celebrating another successful year, strengthening the bonds that hold us together. I'll stand up to welcome everyone, to thank them for their continued support and friendship. It's a responsibility I take seriously, representing not just my own interests, but the values and traditions that make this community special. 6 years ago, I couldn't have imagined standing in front of a crowd, speaking with confidence about our shared future. But that's what growth looks like. Not dramatic transformation overnight, but steady progress toward becoming who you're meant to be. The young man who stepped off that bus with nothing but a duffel bag and a head full of doubts has become a man with deep roots, clear purpose, and genuine confidence. Not arrogance, but the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your place in the world and fulfilling your responsibilities well. I've learned that family isn't just about blood relationships. It's about the people who invest in your success, who celebrate your achievements, who support you through difficulties. By that definition, I have a very large family indeed. John Scott is family. Evelyn Roberts is family. Sarah Morrison is family. The whole community of Cedar Falls has become family in ways that matter more than genetics. But I've also learned that my grandfather was family in the truest sense. Not because we shared DNA, but because he saw my potential when I couldn't see it myself. Because he made sacrifices to give me opportunities. Because he loved me enough to spend his final years ensuring I'd have a chance at the life he wanted for me. That's what real love looks like. Not just feeling, but action. Not just intention, but sacrifice. Frank Kim loved me in the most practical way possible by giving me the tools to build a meaningful life. I've tried to honor that love by using those tools well, by becoming someone worthy of his sacrifice, by contributing to the community he cherished, by treating the land he preserved with the respect it deserves. The ranch is thriving, but more than that, it's contributing. We employ local people. We support local businesses. We participate in local institutions. We're woven into the fabric of this place in ways that strengthen the whole community. That integration didn't happen automatically. It required intentional effort, genuine commitment, and consistent follow-through. But it's been worth every ounce of effort because it's given me something I searched for my entire childhood. A place where I belong completely. Tomorrow's barbecue will be my sixth as host, but it feels as meaningful as the first. Maybe more so because now I understand fully what I'm celebrating. Not just another year of successful ranching, but another year of community, of shared purpose, of mutual support. When I welcome everyone tomorrow, I'll look out at faces that have become dear to me. People who've taught me, challenged me, supported me, and accepted me. People who've shown me what it means to be part of something larger than yourself. I'll think about my grandfather, who would have loved to see this gathering, who would have been proud to see his ranch continuing to serve as a center of community life. I'll think about the scared kid who arrived here 6 years ago and marvel at how far we've both come. But mostly, I'll think about the future, about the young people in the crowd who are trying to figure out their own paths, about the challenges and opportunities facing our community, about my responsibility to be the kind of leader and neighbor that others were to me. The barbecue is everything I hoped it would be. Over 300 people show up, representing every family in the county. Kids run around the yard while adults catch up on news and share plans for the coming year. The volunteer fire department sets up their recruitment booth. The 4-H club displays projects. Local businesses sponsor activities. It's democracy in action, community in its purest form. People who might disagree about politics or policy coming together to celebrate what they share. Love for this place, commitment to each other, hope for the future. During my welcome speech, I look out at the crowd and see Marcus, the young man I hired last month. He's standing at the edge of the group, still uncertain about his place here, but present. That's progress. 6 years ago, I arrived in Cedar Falls as a stranger, I tell the crowd. I had no idea what to expect, no understanding of what it meant to be part of a community like this. You welcomed me, taught me, supported me, and gave me the chance to prove myself. Tonight, I want to thank you for that gift, and I want to promise you that I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of it. The applause is warm and genuine. These people have watched me grow, have seen me make mistakes and learn from them, have celebrated my successes and supported me through challenges. Their approval means everything to me. After the formal program, people drift around the property, renewing friendships and making new connections. I find myself in conversation after conversation, each one reinforcing the bonds that hold this community together. Sarah Morrison pulls me aside near the end of the evening. David, I want you to know something. Frank used to worry that he'd waited too long to find you, that maybe the damage was already done. But seeing you tonight, seeing what you've become, I know he'd understand that everything happened exactly when it was supposed to. I used to be angry about the lost years, I tell her. But now I think you're right. I needed those experiences to become someone who could appreciate this gift fully. That's wisdom talking. Frank would be so proud. As the last guests drive away, I stand on the front porch looking out at the ranch that has become my world. The lights of the town twinkle in the distance. The mountains stand silhouetted against a sky full of stars. The cattle are settled for the night in pastures that stretch beyond what I can see. This is home. Not just the place where I live, but the place where I belong completely. The place where my work matters, where my contributions are valued, where my future is rooted in something solid and enduring. I think about the letter my grandfather wrote to John Scott, the one about me having the character to build strength. He was right, but he couldn't have known how much strength I would need, or how much I was capable of building. The journey from that scared kid aging out of Riverside Children's home to the man standing on this porch has been longer and more challenging than I ever imagined. But it's also been more rewarding than I dared to hope. I've learned that home isn't just a place, it's a feeling of belonging, of contributing, of being valued for who you are and what you bring to the world. I've learned that family isn't just about genetics. It's about the people who invest in your success and celebrate your achievements. Most importantly, I've learned that everyone deserves a chance to find their place in the world. Not everyone gets that chance, but those of us who do have a responsibility to make the most of it and to help others find their own paths to belonging. As I head inside, I'm already thinking about tomorrow. Cattle to check, fences to repair, crops to tend, the endless, satisfying cycle of ranch work that connects me to the land and the seasons and the continuity of this life I've chosen. But I'm also thinking about the future in broader terms, about Marcus and whether he'll find his place here, about the young people in our community and what opportunities we can create for them, about the challenges facing rural America and how communities like ours can adapt and thrive. These are good problems to have. They're the problems of someone who belongs somewhere, who has responsibilities and relationships and reasons to care about tomorrow. 6 years ago, I had none of that. I was surviving, not thriving, getting by, not contributing, alone, not connected. The transformation still amazes me, not because it was easy, but because it was possible. Because when you find where you belong and commit to making the most of that opportunity, you can become someone you never imagined you could be. Tonight, as I prepare for bed in the room my grandfather set up for me, I'm filled with gratitude for the journey that brought me here. For the grandfather I never met, but who loved me enough to ensure I'd have a chance at the life he wanted for me. For the community that welcomed me and gave me the opportunity to prove myself. For the land that has taught me patience, resilience, and the satisfaction of honest work. But mostly I'm grateful for the discovery that I am worthy of love, of trust, of belonging. That was the deepest wound from my childhood, the belief that I wasn't worth keeping, wasn't worth fighting for. My grandfather's legacy healed that wound by showing me that I was worth searching for, worth providing for, worth believing in. Tomorrow will bring new challenges and new opportunities. The ranch will need attention, the community will need leadership, and young people like Marcus will need mentoring. I'm ready for all of it because I know who I am and where I belong. I'm David Kim, rancher, neighbor, community leader, and grateful heir to a legacy of service and stewardship. I'm the grandson of Frank Kim, who never gave up on finding me, and the spiritual son of a community that gave me the chance to become who I was meant to be. This is my story, but it's also a story about the power of community, the importance of belonging, and the truth that everyone deserves a chance to find their place in the world. If you're still searching for that place, don't give up. If you found it, use it to help others find theirs. Some of you watching this might be in foster care, aging out of the system, wondering if anyone will ever want you. I want you to know that you are worthy of love, of belonging, of a chance to prove yourself. Your family might not be the one you were born to, but that doesn't mean you won't find family. Others might be feeling stuck in situations that don't fit who you're meant to be. Take the risk, make the change. Chase the opportunity that scares you but calls to you. You might discover, like I did, that the life you're meant to live is bigger and more meaningful than anything you can imagine from where you are now. And if you're already living the life you love, remember that you have a responsibility to help others find their path. Be the community that welcomes strangers. Be the mentor who believes in someone before they believe in themselves. Be the person who gives others the same chances you've been given. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Tell me about a time when someone believed in you before you believed in yourself. Or share this video with someone who needs to hear that they're worthy of belonging, of love, of a chance to build something meaningful. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. There are more stories like this one, stories about people who found their way home against all odds, and I want to share them with you. Remember, you're never too lost to find your way home. You're never too broken to be made whole, and you're never too alone to find your people. Sometimes the family you're meant to have is waiting for you in a place you've never been, ready to welcome you home. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being part of this community. And thank you for believing, like my grandfather did, that everyone deserves a chance to find where they belong. Until next time, keep searching, keep hoping, and keep believing in the possibility that your best life is still ahead of you. Because it is.